We live in a controversial world. People are available for communication more than ever before, thanks to phones, laptops, and tablets, but perhaps not so keen to meet up face to face as much. Globalization and technology connected people from everywhere on Earth. But what is the value of that online connection? And how has this trend affected local communities? If you listen to the older generations, some would say perhaps we lost that sense of community they experienced when they were young. But what makes a community? How can we define it? And how have they changed since the introduction of the internet to our lives? In this documentary, we will explore how fellow citizens communicate today. We will study how they adopted the internet and made use of it for local cooperation.
Demonstrators protest U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War in mass marches, rallies, and demonstrations. Central Park is the starting point for the parade to the UN building. The estimated 125,000 Manhattan marchers include students, housewives, beatnik poets, doctors, businessmen, teachers.
The word community derives from the Latin word communitas, which means public spirit, intended as an interest in the welfare or good of a community. It originated as a personal interest mechanism in the social groups our ancestors formed millions of years ago, before farming was invented, before villages existed. It was a simple feeling of belonging and protection that came as a result of living in the earliest form of society we know, the hunter-gathering clan.
Today, we live in massive urban territories with huge populations, sometimes counting as many as 10 million inhabitants concentrated in a defined geographical area. Modern cities are bigger and multicultural, as air traveling has made living in your birthplace completely unnecessary.
Before about 1970, you would probably grow up in your area, you would stay in that area, you would probably live quite close to your parents and your grandparents and your sisters and brothers, and therefore you would have this very tight community of support that you were able to get just from the people around you. That's very different these days because in the 70s and 80s people start moving away for educational purposes and for work purposes. They're hanging out purely with people of their own age. So then the corollary is that when they are the first in their group to have children, the motherhood skills aren't there, they haven't seen their mother, their grandmother, they're not next to this community, and therefore they go online.
The internet has allowed us to build connections that break geographical and temporal boundaries, and therefore it has given us the opportunity to dedicate less time and energy to physical interactions. Social media in particular is becoming an integral part of our societies. The time we spend on social media is increasing, inevitably changing the way that we build our relationships.
Well, I think it allows us to form communities online, but they're possibly the bonds between the communities are weaker. We can actually form communities with people whose real name we don't know. We can go onto websites and everybody's using an anonymous pseudonym, and we can actually form very strong emotional bonds with these people, but they're not the same sorts of bonds, and in a way they're not as reciprocal, and they don't really mean material help. You can get lots of advice and you can get lots of sympathy, but at the end of the day you're still there with your problem on your own and you're going to have to solve it in your own way.
Many have criticized people for using the internet as a substitute of face-to-face interactions. In Japan, this tendency can be so severe that those socially isolated people have been given a name: hikikomori, or as academics prefer calling them, postmodern hermits. A lot of research has been done to assess whether the spatial temporal potential of the internet is privatizing our lives, damaging local interaction. Yet it does happen sometimes that social media platforms are created to enhance communication between fellow citizens in a narrow geographical area.
So could it be that the internet, despite contrary belief, can help us build stronger ties with the community, get material help from our neighbours? To answer to this question, let's have a look at what is happening here in the city of Aberdeen in the northeast of Scotland.
Aberdeen, busy place, a place which for a time was hugely sort of successful and bustling.
Aberdeen's a fantastic city and it's changing. I think that's the big message at the minute, is that if you look all around, the city's transforming physically, but also I think culturally as well. There's far more to the city than meets the eye.
I've lived on the same street pretty much my whole life, and I know everyone around me, and it's really good because when you get to go to the shop, you speak to people, you ask how they are, you ask how their families are doing, and you get to know people. Even if you don't see them every day, every so often, you'll still catch up with everyone.
I know the city fairly well because I've lived here all my life. I do really like it for some reason. I don't know, a lot of people don't, but it's my home, always has been. But I like travelling around and it's really easy to get to anywhere from Aberdeen out to the hills, and bike rides and all sorts from here.
The people are characters themselves. Everyone's got their own opinion, everyone's not afraid to say their own opinion, everyone's straight-laced, everyone's to the point, and that's what makes us all unique.
A few years ago, here, in the city of Aberdeen, a citizen created a Facebook page called FUBAR News. The aim of this page was to offer a platform for the practice of what is called citizen journalism.
When 9/11 happened, people were doing this old-fashioned thing of photocopying pictures and posters and pinning them up on walls, and please, if you've seen this person, please tell me. And then when we have the tsunami, which is in 2004, it's not that long after, but things have completely changed, and the tsunami is really the first time that we have citizen journalism. And it's really because no one else was there. The only people who are there in that area on Boxing Day are holidaymakers, and they've got some money because they've managed to go there, and so they've got these newfangled phones and they've got the video cameras. So nobody else is able to get into the area because it's so destroyed, and so they're using what they have to report. They're reporters on the spot.
Just like in global tragedies, FUBAR News relies on the citizens of Aberdeen to report to the rest of the community, as they often are first-hand witnesses of events.
It's a Facebook page that people can send in messages to with events, I guess, that have been happening in their areas, and then if it's deemed appropriate by the admins, they will post it on their page. Things like car break-ins, people trying doors.
If you want news in Aberdeen, FUBAR's like top tier. It's their number one go-to.
I came across it a good few years ago, because I'm not sure how long FUBAR's been going for, but it was a while ago, and somebody messaged me being like, oh, I think something had been stolen or his house had been broken into, and he's like, well, I put it up on FUBAR, and I was like, never heard of that. So I went on, and FUBAR posted like, there's been a break-in in this area, can everybody make sure that if anyone's heard anything, can you let them know? And also make sure your doors are locked, valuables are hidden out of view, and just giving like general advice on things. Some of it sounds obvious, but it's just like a warning to everyone.
Started off as a band, just kind of like letting people know where they're playing, and then changed, and now it's basically just news for the whole of Aberdeen.
FUBAR News has gradually become a major player in Aberdonians' communication and cooperation. As many as 122,000 people like the page, half the population of a city. The page is run by a group of 9 administrators who like to keep their identity hidden. They have the power to choose what to post and what to discard, according to a set of rules by them written, which appears at the top of the page. I've observed and scrutinized the page for 7 days to gain a better understanding of the dynamics of FUBAR News and people's engagement with the page and one another. FUBAR News made its way into Aberdonians' life a few years ago, and the user's population rose fast, reaching nearly 122,000 likes. That's a lot if you consider that Aberdeen has a total of 220,000 citizens. In those 7 days I looked at the page, 61 posts were published. 1 was a complaint, 6 were about stolen items, 10 were entertaining, 11 about traffic, 16 were news-like posts, and 16 were about safety. The nature of these posts is a very good indicator of what are the elements that bring the community together here in Aberdeen. It seems then that FUBAR News is a page often used to keep citizens on track with various issues, ranging from traffic to general updates to safety tips. It is a page that brings citizens together by discussing safety issues within the city.
And then you can see here 10 plus lot of emergency units at Frog Hall Terrace just now. So, and then you've got people commenting other pictures. So you've got pictures of what they've posted or a local person has posted, and then in the comments down below you've also got pictures of other people who are living close by.
My bike recently got stolen last week from quite a nice area in Aberdeen, and posted on FUBAR, and it's been shared over 200 times since then by people, which is brilliant. So there's pictures of bikes out and out, so people have been messaging me, been saying, I think we've seen the bike. So I've gone out looking in those areas.
A few weeks ago, I had some younger boys hanging around outside my flat, which I wasn't very keen on at all. And then I saw a post on FUBAR News of boys matching the description of the ones outside who'd been nearby in different accommodation area, trying to get into blocks and going into bike sheds and stuff. So seeing a post like that, I then sent it to my flatmate, my boyfriend, my friends. I was like, these are the ones, to then make them aware and make sure we always had our door shut.
Another thing that struck me from my analysis was the altruism of the users, demonstrated by their sharing posts of safety, often about burglars trying doors in certain areas of the city, and posts about stolen items to help strangers from the community find their bikes and cars. In my week of analysis, safety posts were shared 1,307 times, and the ones about stolen items 527. Those posts were also loaded with comments of strangers expressing their solidarity for the victim of crime. I gradually developed the feeling that FUBAR News is a public space where the respectable citizens form bonds and unite against the crime perpetrators of Aberdeen.
You've seen a couple of times where somebody has posted something about these people who've nicked my son's swing set or something, and you get hundreds of posts sort of really aggressive, these people should be hung up, and sometimes people have actually posted a little video of the burglar, and you do think if somebody identified that burglar, the anger that's on this website we have, it's not FUBAR News, but in my village we have a Facebook page. And mostly it's complaints about dog poo on the pavements. But there was an incident a couple of months ago where somebody sort of said, this red car passed me and it was dangerous and it was doing over, and gave the number of the car. And someone said, oh, that's Steve's car. And everyone was like, Steve, you know, you're killing people, you know, bastard, stop doing this. And it was real mob anger.
Say, if it was a young boy, like the ones that were here, there would be a comment about how the mums should be looking after them, or that it's past their bedtime, or there should be some sort of recreational activity provided for them. So, keyboard warriors are on FUBAR News for sure.
I think it makes them feel part of the community. It defines the community. And the community is us, and it's not these other people. And on FUBAR News, the other people are the thieves and the druggies, and on my village Facebook, they're the people whose dogs don't just go all over the roads. So we have these definitions, and we can see that, oh, this is the correct behaviour, and therefore I will, you know, be in with the in crowd if I'm doing this correct behaviour, and also if I'm vocally saying, oh yes, the dog is awful.
With some things, everyone will help each other out, share it on the internet if you need it, or if you're selling stuff or moving house, then people just come and help. But on the other side, there is the opposite side of the community where people are stealing things, but they also help each other out in a certain way.
But I can't help but wonder, to what extent does this unity go? Do people meet with each other in real life, or do they just communicate from their devices?
I have never got to know anyone through FUBAR News. I only really read the posts. I'm a lurker.
I've never met anyone face to face over FUBAR, but I've been chatting to people. People have messaged me, mainly about what's happened recently with my motorbike being stolen.
I think that people are allowed to express themselves differently online. I think our personas online may not be the same as our personas now. That if you're hiding behind a pseudonym, you can be more tough talking or more violent in your opinions, or present a better version of yourself, or say that, you know, actually I'm gorgeous and blonde and slim and 23. And so we can have this fantasy version of ourselves. Now, most people don't go to the extreme of completely changing details, but we can be more abrasive, or, you know, more aggressive online, or a nicer person. So I think that we all do have a slightly different persona online. So I can understand why somebody wouldn't want to meet people.
I feel like by being online only, it's still fine. It would change it if there was physical contact, like meetups, whatever. It wouldn't be the same, because a key part of FUBAR News is the anonymity of it.
There's no physical bond, I guess. So it's easier to express your opinion online, obviously, because you're not face to face with someone. And that can be good as well as really bad, depending on the person. But for the most part, it's quite good, because you're not limited by how they would react. Because when you're with someone face to face, you've got their instant reaction, where online you don't. So you've kind of got that little bit of protection, I guess.
I think it can be concerning if it becomes more real to them, but I think people have been doing this always. It used to be when we watch television or film, or when we read books. You know, you're reading your romance novel and you're imagining you're the beautiful woman sinking into his arms. So we've always done that. It's perhaps a little more interactive now.
Nowadays, those that aren't online really constitute an exception. But even here, you can find a digital divide. The fact that some layers of society still are not connected.
Age is a major barrier, I would say. And we have to react to how people want to be engaged with. It's not about us forcing our way on people who may be used to receiving their information used in different ways, whether that's from letters, from media, press ads. We still have to cater for that demographic.
We have older people, I mean older women in particular, women over 80, just do not go online. They left work, or they weren't in work at all during but they left work before they had to be trained up on a computer. They've never used computers. All they do is read the Daily Mail or something about how, you know, people online are going to steal your money and send you porn. They don't want to go on there. But it does mean that they're cut off, and it's a real problem these days. If you want to buy a train ticket, it's going to be cheaper if you do it online. These days banks, your gas bill, everything is coming online only, so they can't keep on top of their money because they're not online.
I am really not involved in this at all. Really, I've got a mobile phone which I use to text and to make calls, but really I'm left behind with all the things like that. Sadly, I'd like to be able to send emails and all sorts, but I'm kind of lost in it.
But we've got another digital divide as well, and that's with actually a group of very young people who've dropped out. They maybe didn't get many qualifications at school. They don't actually have the money to go online. There was some really interesting research a couple of years ago where people talked to these young people, and they had internet-enabled phones, but they only used them to text. They didn't use them to access the internet. And the problem, the digital divide we there have, is a lack of skills. So these people might know how to use WhatsApp, but they don't know how to use the internet to benefit themselves, to search for information, to shop, or to do, you know, the positive things that the internet can do.
There's not a lot of people who aren't online nowadays, but people who are, I'm not sure how they would do it, how they'd look for stuff and maybe get a family member or a friend who is online to post it for them.
It's wonderful how information is just there in these little devices. It's just the world's there. It's wonderful.
It is undeniable that FUBAR news is a method of communicating among citizens with no precedence. Before the internet, it was just not possible to get everyone to interact to such extent, at the same time and with such an immediacy, to reach out to the community so fast and loud. So how were people doing this before?
Things always happened, but weren't reported in the same way. Sort of suddenly, you know, something happens in the morning, and then by lunchtime, the whole place knows about it. Where before, things would happen, and you wouldn't hear about it until the papers came out the next day.
Since FUBAR News has come around, everyone knows a lot more about what's going on in the city. Before, we didn't really have anything else apart from sharing it from friends of friends of friends, but that's only a very small group, especially with the size of Aberdeen.
It's a lot easier now if you want to contact people or create like events or having a party. On the downside of it, there's too many people nowadays relying on their phone 24/7 and the internet to message, even when you're with people. I cannot stand people on their phone all the time when you've met up with them.
People don't lift their heads anymore to what they're constantly locked on to. I use the buses a lot to get in and out of town, and I see the young people, all of them, sitting with their phones on the side.
I think that we weren't as isolated 50 years ago. You were more likely to be living close to relatives, close to friends. We had a different social structure than we have these days. And so the internet to a certain extent has come along to fill that gap.
You had your family, and the street I was brought up in, there were lots of other children, and of course in those days we played outside lots. There wasn't anything to keep us in the house. There was no computering, nothing like that at all.
Whether the internet is creating a new digital ecosystem feeling more natural to us, whether connectivity is the new organizing principle of a human species, is still subject of debate. Yet, there is no doubt that new technologies have given birth to the process of empowerment of citizens and that have made their voices more relevant, in FUBAR News but also at the City Council.
I think that's what's changed. It's a two-way communication now, whereas previously it was all about broadcasting what we're doing. Now we have the instant two-way communication.
It allows us to build a different sort of relationship with the residents.
We don't want to stand alone and be an organisation that sits in Marshall College or the Townhouse apart from the people that we work on behalf of. It's about listening to the communities that we serve and really taking on board what's been said to improve services and just change the way that we do things a bit.
And I suppose as well, the fact that it's in an open forum, if you're answering one person's query, you may well have answered, in a public forum, you may well have answered a lot of people's queries.
FUBAR News has for the first time at such a scale offers Aberdeen citizens the opportunity to take an active step in using their voice to reach one another, to launch messages that everybody on the page can see. And because of the popularity of the page, even the authorities need to take it into account.
Residents would maybe go there first, so maybe it's something we need to look at in the future, how we can not work together, but maybe how we can help each other moving forward. But yeah, I think a lot of residents would go there first. Maybe not necessarily with a complaint, but maybe just a point to raise for the rest of the community, and they maybe think that's a easier access point than it would be via our channels.
FUBAR News really is the result of a connectivity potential of social media. It relies on the digital characteristic of remote communication, and even if it has made physical interaction redundant, it certainly is the most successful dialogue platform for people in Aberdeen. And ultimately, it seems overall that there is a general feeling among citizens that FUBAR News has benefited the community here in the city, that it has helped build trust among users, and that it gives the community a tool to define their values and therefore collective identity.
Makes everyone feel like they're getting involved with the community, because there isn't really any other system going that has that sort of information constantly updating. All the admins do it anonymously, nobody knows who they are, but they don't do it for any sort of credit, they just do it because they want to help out, which I think is brilliant.
I think FUBAR News might have possibly upped the sense of community, depending on the area again. But if someone saw a post about a door being tried, then they might be more aware that the area might not be safe, might look out for an elderly person in the area, or just be a little bit more community spirit, have a bit more community spirit.
There was one time somebody's toy bike had been stolen, and they posted it on FUBAR, and everyone in the community got together and chipped in and bought this person, like their kid, a new bike, which I thought was brilliant. Like, bad circumstances, but it just shows you like people in Aberdeen there are a lot of good people willing to help out people they don't know.
There is, I think, increasingly a community feel and an identity.
It makes a lot of pride in Aberdonians as well. They're proud of their city and they want to see it do well and want to see.
It's got being relatively remote, I think it's got a distinctive personality which it does hang on to.
Grandchildren around your age and all that, and they seem absolutely lovely with their connections to their friends, despite this business. But when they get onto buses, they're locked into their devices. I think that young people nowadays are as attached and to their friends, and I would say exactly the same as we were, but in a different way. That's it, just in a different way.
It's kind of a mutual kind of likeness, you know. If they're like, oh, I heard from FUBAR News, you'd be like, oh, I watched them as well. Like, it's pretty cool. It's kind of like an instant connection kind of thing, even though it's very small and near enough insignificant. it's still there. So if someone else likes FUBAR News or like even reports stuff on FUBAR News, you kind of just automatically think, oh, they must be, you know, good to Aberdeen because of it.
I think it does create a community. It strengthens the bonds within the local community in a really positive way, and it's also an opportunity for local people to demonstrate their altruism.